All right, so today we're going deep on Steve Jobs.
Deep dive.
Yeah, a deep dive into Steve Jobs, specifically his communication and leadership style.
Yeah, you've given me a bunch of YouTube videos about this, and it
Mhm.
seems like there's so much to unpack about what made him so effective, even when he was
Yeah.
getting some pretty tough questions.
And we have a really cool mix of sources here, right?
Yeah.
We've got
Yeah.
clips of Jobs himself talking.
Mm.
We've got like experts breaking down his techniques.
Yeah, analysis videos, and even like reflections years later on his legacy. So
Yeah.
really a 360-degree view.
I'm excited to jump in.
Yeah.
Let's start with this video analyzing Jobs' response to criticism at an Apple event.
Okay.
This was during Q&A, and Apple was still finding its feet.
Right.
And this audience member really kind of challenged one of Jobs' technical decisions,
Uh-huh.
almost accusing him of being out of touch.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine the energy in that room.
Totally.
Right.
But instead of getting defensive, Jobs reacts with this, like, unexpected playfulness.
Oh.
He even jokes about the guy being a knife sharpener trying to stir things up.
Mm.
So it's like he acknowledges the tension,
Right.
but doesn't let it rattle him.
It's brilliant. I mean, by using humor, he instantly diffuses the situation.
Yeah.
And takes control of the whole narrative.
Yeah.
He's basically setting the stage for a more
Right.
level-headed conversation.
So how does he build on that?
Well, first he establishes common ground, like right out the gate, with the statement like, we can't please everyone all the time.
Yeah.
Simple. But it creates this instant connection with the audience. It's like,
Right.
hey, we're all on the same page here.
Look, I get it. We all have different wants and needs.
Exactly. And then he very cleverly reframes the critique.
Okay.
Instead of letting it stand as this personal attack,
Mm-hmm.
he uses language, like some folks,
Okay.
to position the critic as like representing a group with valid concerns,
Right.
not just one disgruntled person.
So it's not a head-to-head. It's more like different perspectives within the Apple community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that makes Jobs appear much more reasonable
Yeah.
and open to dialogue. But then notice how he doesn't just dismiss the criticism outright.
Yeah.
He acknowledges that the critic's point might be valid in some areas.
So he's coming across as open-minded, even though
No.
he's about to totally dismantle the argument.
Precisely. And he does that by kind of shifting the focus to the bigger picture.
Okay.
He emphasizes that Apple's massive scale requires a different approach than like niche solutions.
We're playing a different game here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but it implies that the critic might have a more limited perspective.
I see.
And to really drive this point home, he brings up the laser printer.
Okay.
Now remember, this is back when laser printers were revolutionary.
Mm.
These were complex machines, but Apple focused on making them user-friendly.
It was all about that user experience. Nobody cared how it worked,
Right.
as long as it printed beautiful documents.
Exactly. And that laser printer, with its sleek design and simple functionality, became a symbol of Apple's commitment to user-centric design,
Right.
a principle that, as we know, played a huge role in their success.
So he's kind of weaving these product examples into his response
Mhm.
to reinforce his vision.
Absolutely. But then he does something even more unexpected. He admits to making mistakes.
Oh.
He says, I don't have all the answers.
Wow.
And this vulnerability, I think, is key.
Right.
It makes him relatable, less of a tech god.
Humanizes him a little bit.
Exactly. And I think that resonates with people, especially in a field like technology.
Hey, I'm human too. We make mistakes, but we learn from them,
Right.
and we keep moving forward.
And to kind of wrap up his response, he reminds everyone that he's got this brilliant team
Yeah.
working alongside him.
It's not just the Steve Jobs show.
Right. It's not a one-man show. He's sharing the credit,
Right.
acknowledging that he doesn't have all the answers, but together they can achieve great things.
And his final point is almost philosophical. You know, he says, look, we're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. But it's a sign that we're pushing boundaries and taking risks.
It's a powerful message because he's framing those mistakes as stepping stones to progress.
It's amazing how much we can unpack from just one Q&A session.
Right.
He addressed the criticism.
It did.
He reaffirmed his vision for Apple. And he connected with the audience on a human level.
It's a masterclass in communication and leadership.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that this wasn't just some innate talent.
Okay.
Jobs actively cultivated his skills and approach,
Interesting.
which brings us to this next video.
Okay, so let's dive into that and see what we can learn from Jobs' approach to learning and mastery. Okay, so this video is about what the creator calls Jobs' secrets of learning. I'm curious to hear how he actually approached learning and mastery.
Well, what I think is so fascinating about this video is it's like, Yeah, it's about Steve Jobs, but it's really applicable to anyone in any field
Yeah.
who's striving for excellence.
So not just about tech then.
Not at all. It's about that mindset,
Right.
that hunger for knowledge, and that continuous improvement.
Okay, so what's the first secret?
So first, it echoes what we just saw in that Q&A, the importance of surrounding yourself with really brilliant people.
Go.
Jobs was a genius, no doubt.
Uh-huh.
But even he recognized that he couldn't do it all alone.
Right.
He was a master at building these exceptional teams.
He had that A-team mentality.
Exactly. And this raises a really important question, I think, for all of us listening. Like, how can you build your own A-team?
Hmm.
Who are the mentors, the peers, the collaborators who can elevate your work?
Yeah.
Think about those people you admire in your field, whose work you really respect.
Yeah.
Could you reach out to them for advice?
Hmm.
Join communities where they gather, maybe collaborate on a project.
Yeah, it's about actively seeking out those who can challenge you and inspire you.
Exactly. And the next secret's actually something that might surprise you.
Okay.
It's embracing diverse interests.
Okay.
So Jobs was fascinated by calligraphy, of all things.
Calligraphy.
Yeah, you might think, what does calligraphy have to do with tech?
Yeah, they seem totally unrelated.
Right, except it wasn't. Years later, Jobs actually revealed that his calligraphy class influenced the Mac's typography.
Oh, wow.
The different fonts, the spacing, the overall aesthetic
Interesting.
stemmed from his love of calligraphy.
So something he learned purely out of passion
Right.
could unexpectedly converge with his work.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
He famously said, "You can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward."
Hmm.
It's a reminder to be open to exploring these passions, even if they seem unrelated to your work.
You never know how they might inform your work down the line.
Exactly. So what other secrets did he reveal?
Yeah. What else? Oh, another big theme, and it's one that I think needs a bit of nuance, is the importance of loving what you do.
Okay.
Jobs had this almost obsessive passion that really fueled his work ethic.
Right. He was notorious for those long hours
Mm-hmm.
and demanding nature. Right. And while we don't want to glorify overwork, I think there is something to be said for that deep-seated passion that makes you want to go the extra mile. Not because you have to, but because you can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah. It's about finding that drive, that intrinsic motivation.
Exact.
Makes the work itself the reward.
And if you're not feeling that spark, that excitement about what you're doing, it might be a sign to reevaluate,
Yeah.
What are you truly passionate about?
Right.
What kind of work would make you want to jump out of bed in the morning?
Okay, so passion's key. What else?
So alongside passion, Jobs really emphasize the importance of never settling for mediocrity,
Okay.
always striving for excellence.
And this explains his reputation for being so demanding, right?
Absolutely. He had incredibly high standards.
Yeah.
And while his approach might have been a bit extreme at times,
Right.
I think there's a valuable lesson here for all of us.
Okay.
It's about raising your own standards, constantly pushing yourself to reach that next level.
Not comparing yourself to others,
Right.
but holding yourself accountable.
Exactly. And I think that ties in beautifully with another principle, simplicity and minimalism.
Okay.
And we see this reflected in Apple's design philosophy, right? Making complex technology intuitive and user-friendly.
Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Exactly.
Right.
And it goes beyond just aesthetics. It's about clarity of thought, eliminating distractions to really focus on what truly matters.
So streamlining your workflow, decluttering your mental space.
Right. How can you simplify your own processes?
Right.
What's essential versus the clutter that might be holding you back?
Okay.
And finally, we get to one of Jobs' most famous pieces of advice.
Okay.
Challenge the status quo. But here's the key. Only after you deeply understand the rules, the systems, the conventions.
So not reckless rebellion,
Right.
but calculated risk-taking.
It's about mastering the fundamentals so well that you know exactly which rules to bend or break to achieve something truly innovative.
It's like learning the language of your field so fluently that you can then write your own poetry with it.
That's a great way to put it. So now I want you to think, what conventions in your field could be rethought?
Yeah.
Where can you bring a fresh perspective, a willingness to kind of question the status quo?
It's about having the courage to ask why.
Exactly. And this actually leads us to this next video, which offers even more direct advice from Jobs himself.
Okay.
Little nuggets of wisdom that reveal not just his business savvy,
Mm-hmm.
but his personal philosophy.
Okay, I'm ready to hear what other gems he's got to share. Okay, so this video is a compilation of key advice from Steve Jobs. And I'm really curious to see how his personal philosophy kind of shaped his approach to business.
You know, it's fascinating to see how consistently these themes reappear
Yeah.
throughout his interviews and speeches. Like,
Yeah.
it really highlights how deeply he believed in these principles.
Yeah, it's not just lip service.
Yeah.
He lived and breathed this stuff.
Absolutely. So what's the first piece of advice that stands out to you?
Well, it really builds on what we've already been talking about,
Uh-huh.
the importance of passion.
Mm-hmm.
Jobs firmly believed that passion is essential for success,
Yeah.
especially, I think, for entrepreneurs. He once said, the biggest difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is that successful people are willing to go the extra mile.
It's so true.
So he wasn't just talking about, working hard.
Yeah.
It was about that fire in your belly,
Right.
that drive that makes you want to go above and beyond.
Exactly. Jobs was notorious for his relentless work ethic,
Yeah.
but it stemmed from this deep-seated passion for what he was doing.
It wasn't just about clocking in and clocking out.
Right.
It was about pouring your heart and soul into your work.
It makes you think, what am I truly passionate about? What makes me want to go that extra mile? Not because I have to, but because I can't imagine doing anything else.
Yeah.
And let's face it, building something great is rarely easy. There are going to be setbacks,
Right.
challenges, moments where you just want to throw in the towel.
Which brings us to his next point,
Yeah,
perseverance.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Jobs famously said, I'm convinced that about half of what separates successful entrepreneurs from the non-successful ones is pure perseverance.
So it's about having that resilience,
Yeah.
the ability to bounce back from failure.
Learn from those mistakes and keep pushing forward.
Fall 7 times, stand up 8.
Exactly. And it's not just about gritting your teeth and powering through. It's about being adaptable,
Mm-hmm.
being willing to adjust your approach as needed.
Yeah.
Knowing when to pivot or change direction entirely.
Right.
Remember, even Jobs had his setbacks.
He did.
I mean, he was ousted from Apple, the company that he co-founded,
Right.
but he didn't let that defeat him.
Yeah, he came back stronger.
Exactly.
But what can we learn from that approach to perseverance?
Well, I think it's about developing strategies for coping with those inevitable challenges.
Mm.
Maybe it's seeking support from mentors, reframing setbacks as learning opportunities,
Right.
or simply taking time to recharge and refocus.
Yeah.
It's about finding what works for you and building that mental and emotional resilience.
And it seems like Jobs also really understood the importance of building strong teams.
Absolutely. He knew he couldn't achieve his vision alone,
Yeah.
so he sought out individuals who shared his passion, his commitment to excellence,
Right.
and his willingness to push boundaries.
It takes a village.
Exactly. Success is rarely a solo act. It's about building a team of talented, dedicated individuals
Yeah.
who can complement each other's strengths
Right.
and work towards that common goal.
It's like assembling that all-star team.
Yeah.
Each player bringing their unique skills.
Right, and it's not just about finding the right people.
Uh-huh.
It's about creating a culture of collaboration
Yeah.
where everyone feels empowered to contribute their ideas
Yeah.
and support each other.
Think about your network.
Yeah,
Who are the A players in your field?
exactly.
Who could you collaborate with? Who could you learn from?
Mm.
Who could you even mentor?
It's about building those relationships,
Yeah.
and creating a supportive ecosystem where
Yeah.
everyone can thrive.
And Jobs was adamant about focusing on the customer experience.
Oh, absolutely. He said you've got to start with the customer experience and work back toward the technology, not the other way around.
Mm.
This philosophy was at the heart of Apple's success.
It's about understanding what the user needs,
Mm-hmm.
what their pain points are,
Yeah.
and designing products and services that solve real problems and enhance their lives.
It's about putting the user at the center of everything you do.
Right.
Think about a well-designed app. It's intuitive, it's easy to use.
Yeah.
It just works. That's the power of a user-centric approach.
So how can we apply this in our own work?
Right. How can you better understand the needs of your audience
Yeah.
and tailor your work to meet those needs?
Maybe it's user research feedback surveys.
Yeah.
Simply putting yourself in the shoes of your audience,
Mm-hmm.
asking, how can I make their experience better?
Exactly. And lastly, Jobs believed in the power of vision,
Okay.
having a clear sense of where you're going and why it matters. He famously said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do."
It speaks to that audacity to dream big,
Yeah.
to set ambitious goals,
Mm-hmm.
and pursue them relentlessly, even when others doubt you.
It's about having that unwavering belief in your ability to make a difference.
Right.
And, that doesn't mean you have to set out to change the world in some grand sweeping way.
Right.
It could be about making a difference in your community, your
Right.
industry, or even just in the lives of those around you.
What's your personal vision? What impact do you want to have?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've gone through some of Steve Jobs' most impactful strategies and philosophies today.
Yeah.
We've seen how he approached communication, leadership, learning, even life itself.
It's been a fascinating deep dive.
He was a complex figure,
Yeah.
but there's so much we can learn from his approach.
As we wrap up, I'd love to leave our listeners with this question. No.
Mhm.
If you had to distill Jobs' approach down to one core principle, what would it be?
Hmm.
And how could you apply that principle in your own pursuits?
It's a great question to reflect on. And remember, the journey doesn't end here. It's up to each of us to take these insights and apply them to our own lives and work.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving for that next level.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Steve Jobs.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.